On March 11, 2022, in a speech, Governor Jim Justice said, and I quote, "President Biden must tap into West Virginia's rich natural resources to make America energy independent again." End of quote. When has America been truly energy independent? Well, that's what some politicians would have you believe, but it's not really true in any meaningful sense of the word independent. In its broadest sense, energy independence can be taken to mean that the country produces more energy than the country consumes. The U.S. will remain at least partially dependent on foreign oil for the foreseeable future. In the same speech, Justice said, and I quote, "I don't know if climate change is real or not." End of quote. Considering all the scientific information out there, we could question why the governor does not know if climate change is real or not. Could this statement be based on being blinded to these facts on climate change by money from the fossil fuel industry? Governor Jim Justice, in the same speech, said, and I quote, "God does not want war in Ukraine, or a maternity ward blowing up, or little children blowing up." End of quote. Of course God doesn't want that, or neither do we, and it is only right for Justice and all of us to be concerned and want to help the Ukrainian people. But Justice doesn't seem to be concerned about what is happening and what could happen to his own citizens of West Virginia if the Mountain Valley Pipeline's 42-inch high-pressure natural gas pipeline is finished. Construction has already destroyed people's farms, timber, water supplies, and the threat of landslides on steep slopes causing an explosion, blowing up families and little children. I do not think God wants that either. Justice should be concerned about this as well. Governor Justice also said in this speech, and I quote, "The whole world is running through the streets saying, 'Where is West Virginia? Where is West Virginia to save us?'" End of quote. Justice, what about West Virginia citizens running through the streets saying, "Where is West Virginia to save itself from big corporations who are ripping it apart, destroying its beauty, its water, and its citizens?" Bluefield Daily Telegraph, March 3, 2022, by Charles Booth. Manchin moves to help speed up finish of natural gas pipeline. In this article, Senator Manchin is quoted as saying that the Mountain Valley Pipeline, a 42-inch natural gas pipeline running 303 miles from northern West Virginia down through West Virginia and through Virginia to Chapman, Virginia, is 95% complete, which means the pipeline is in the ground, covered, and reclamation done on the land above it. According to FERC, the pipeline is only 55% complete. 20 miles of linear pipe remaining to be installed. This includes steep slopes, karst terrain with sinkholes and caves, more than 600 rivers and streams to cross. Only 15% of total water crossings has been completed. Pipes are still laying on hills and mountains tops that have not been installed. Lots of places where the pipe is buried in the ground, on the land above it, there has been no reclamation yet. Topsoil and rock are still piled beside the route. When the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission decided by a 3-2 vote on guidelines last month, Manchin, who is chairman of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, was quick to respond. And I quote, "Today's reckless decision by FERC's Democratic commissioners put the security of our nation at risk," he said. "The only thing they accomplished today was constructing additional roadblocks that further delay building out the energy infrastructure our country desperately needs." End of quote. With the changes of the FERC guidelines, gas pipeline reviewers will consider a project's effect on climate change, look at a wider set of impacts on landowners and environmental justice communities, and scrutinize the economic need related to the public need. Manchin called the changes sweeping and ill-informed, as he is now seeking answers and remedies. Both natural gas pipelines that run through West Virginia, the Mountain Valley Pipeline and the Atlantic Coastal Pipeline. The Atlantic Coastal Pipeline has been aborted. were inundated with lawsuits filed by environmental groups that cite the impacts on the environment, dangers to residents, and the vitality of going through unwilling landowners' property because of eminent domain. Recently, Senator Joe Manchin met with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to discuss recent changes to the regulations on pipeline construction, as the Bluefield Daily Telegraph reported. During the hearing and in the article, he spouted false claims that the fracked gas Mountain Valley Pipeline is 95% complete, suggesting its completion is inevitable. There are those who live on or near the pipeline's route, and they can tell you with certainty that this is not true. There is rusty pipe sitting on top of hills and other places on the pipeline route that is not in the ground. And as mentioned earlier, rivers and other water bodies are still to be crossed. Due to over-reliance on desktop analysis for route planning, sloppy workmanship, legal, financial, and political pressure, the project is only 55% complete, according to FERC. Manchin says we must ramp up natural gas production for the sake of our country's energy reliability and security. This is completely false. Only a rapid transition to clean energy will secure the nation's energy independence. The climate crisis presents a massive threat to our country's security, as the Department of Defense has asserted. If we all pull together as people did during World War II to face this crisis, instead of pretending it doesn't exist, we could reduce our consumption of energy by reducing unnecessary consumerism and planned obsoleteness, and structure our economic and governance models towards balancing what we give back and what we take. Unnecessary consumerism and planned obsoleteness represent as high as 53% of what is manufactured, sold, and bought, which winds up being transported to landfills sometimes as soon as the next day after purchase, where even more energy is used to grind it up and force feed it into the earth. This is the sin cycle we call the economy, and it can only lead to destruction and death. Manchin claims the completion of the Mountain Valley Pipeline is for the good of our country. It may be good for 0.01%, but it's not good for the people and other living creatures that live in its path. The Mountain Valley Pipeline has neglectfully impacted rural communities. People have lost their vital water sources, both springs and wells, and their roads, fences, and topsoil are being washed away from increased flooding along the pipeline route. Entire ecosystems have been disrupted, and magnificent view sheds have been destroyed. Some of the poorest and oldest residents in the state live along the route. That's no coincidence. Mountain Valley Pipeline planned their route through the rural communities because they thought people there were easy targets. I can assure you they are not. They have fought this pipeline tirelessly for 7 years, and recent court decisions signal that they are winning. Manchin stated that there were no pipelines to get the Marcellus shale gas out of north central West Virginia. This statement is also false. The WB Express and Mountaineer Express are two newly constructed pipelines to move gas out to the east and the west. The Mountain Valley Pipeline isn't needed. Why is Senator Manchin pushing so hard to get the Mountain Valley Pipeline up and running? In 2020, Senator Manchin was the recipient of $20,000 from the natural gas pipeline companies. Then, in the first quarter of 2022, he has been the recipient of $396,170 from the natural gas companies. That is $376,170 more than 2 years ago. He said he would support any way to get the pipeline finalized. On March 10, 2022, Senator Manchin called on the President Biden to invoke the Defense Production Act, if necessary, to complete the Mountain Valley natural gas pipeline. In response, White House Press Secretary signaled that the White House isn't inclined to tap the Defense Production Act to spur energy production. It would basically be providing money to oil companies to do something that they already probably have the capacity to do, she said. Join many West Virginians in encouraging their leaders to stop spreading lies about the pipeline and its impact on their communities. Instead, they need Senator Manchin and other representatives to lift up West Virginia communities by leading the transition to renewable energy to provide energy security and center the health of our communities and people in that transition. And for those politicians to put their own interest and greed aside, and the need for politicians who truly care for the citizens they are representing.